pyramid taken off. It's kind of cool. Yeah. Yeah, we got time for one more. What else we got? Myth. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that people tend to think is that I think a lot of people are under the impression that any piece of real estate, right, is like a good investment, right? You'll buy it today, no matter what it is, and tomorrow you'll sell it and you'll make money. Anytime I'm out showing my buyers, one of the big things that we talk about is like, hey, not every house is a good house, right? Every house has its issues, and I don't want to put you in a lemon, right? Because it's really easy to buy a house, and then next thing you know, you don't do good due diligence, or you don't do your, whether it's good inspections or whatever, and all of a sudden, whoa, hold on, you're going to be way upside down on it. Same with like remodels, right? I'm always amazed at, a lot of times I have clients who will call me and say, hey, we're not looking to sell, but we're thinking about doing this remodel, or we're thinking about upgrading this or that or the other thing. It's like, okay, great, awesome. Don't go crazy, right? Like, don't do something that's not going to work out in the long term. I've had clients where it will be, I'll call it a starter home, or it'll be, something it's not super high end, right? We're not pushing over 500,000, and the wife wants to put in a Viking stove and all these really, really high end appliances because she loves to cook or something. Like, that's great, but you're not going to get the value back out of that. Right? So not everything is a one-for-one value add. And I think that's sometimes a myth, where they think if you buy anything you buy, if you stick 40,000 into the kitchen, you'll get 40 out. And it's like, that's not how that works. There's definitely properties where you buy it, and the long-term projection of whether it's the area or just the house in general, it's not going to exceed, the value is not going to go up as fast as if you buy something in a different location, right, or a different zip code. I'd like to think that every agent is going to think that way. We have a due diligence as an agent, right? Because real estate's a really vast industry. If you're not competent in something, you should refer it out, right? So. Commercial real estate or investment real estate is a really easy one to pick on with that, where it's like, hey, just because they're licensed in the state of Michigan doesn't mean that they're really qualified to do a commercial transaction, right? And commercial in and of itself is, you could break down into multiple different categories, where just because that commercial agent does office space doesn't mean that they are qualified to do something like heavy industrial, right? Like, I wouldn't touch a heavy industrial project on the commercial end, because I just don't know enough about it to be competent in it. Oh yeah, that's a tough one. You got to do your due diligence. It's just like when you're buying a house. You need to do your due diligence on your agents. Hire somebody you know, like, and trust. And just because they're your best friend, maybe they're not. Again, like, if I was just a general member of the public, right, and if I was just selling my house, yep, calling my best buddy, he's doing it. But if I'm looking at buying a restaurant with a lease and everything else, hey, that might not be his expertise. I would probably go to him and say, hey, I'm doing this. Who do you recommend for this specific thing? That's probably how I would go about it, and see who he recommends, because they're in the industry. Again, it's one thing if you're doing just generic residential. It's another thing when it's like, hey, as soon as you start venturing into other categories of real estate, it might be better to interview a few people. Because even investment real estate, I see this all the time where, especially with like duplexes or quads, right? You'll get a generic agent will list it for rent, or for sale, right? And they'll put the rents and they'll put the thing, and then the price is just astronomical, right? And I don't think the agent's ever even heard of what I would, a capitalization rate. And it's like, okay, if you plug all those numbers in, the house is underwater. So they'll label it as a cash cow on their descriptions and all this other stuff. And it's like, guys, no, by the time you plug in the, $500,000 price tag, and then, taxes, insurance, mortgage, vacancy factor, all of your numbers, it turns out it's not a cash cow. You're actually losing money every month on that property, but they'll put it out there as if it's a cash cow. And to maybe somebody on the general public, I don't know if they would know how to actually look at that and critically look at it as an investment. With investment property, it's always going to be helpful to be cautious. You're buying something as an investment, right? You're spending money on something in order to get a return, right? You're not doing this for a hobby. You're not doing it for fun, right? Like, it's kind of a job. Biggest thing I'd say is before you just jump into investment real estate, do your research, right? You should watch as many YouTube videos as you can. I didn't complete it, but I did 2 CCIM courses, which is just specifically looking at things that are, calculating cap rates, looking at real estate as an investment. Those are the things. Before you ever jump in, it's probably worth it to buy somebody's masterclass for a couple $100 to understand what investment real estate is. So that way you can kind of see some of those additional red flags. Every property is different when you're looking to do investment real estate. So having that critical eye to say, okay, condition of the property, what are the deferred maintenance on the property, and then you start factoring in your actual hard numbers, your mortgage, your rent. I put a 10% vacancy factor on all of my stuff when I'm calculating it all. I have a spreadsheet where I can plug in all these numbers, and it will spit out my cap rate and all my information on it. So you should have a good insurance guy, so you can call them and say, hey, here's the address, give me a quote on my insurance. I recently looked at a property. It was a big multi-unit, and the numbers started to look good. They were kind of getting tight, and then I called my insurance agent and said, hey, I'm looking at this, multiplex. Let me know what my insurance is going to be. And he came back, the insurance on it. This is a guy who specializes in investment real estate. Goes, hey, your insurance is going to be $8,000 a year on this. And I was like, wow, that's it was a lot higher than what I had anticipated on my spreadsheet. And as soon as I plugged that in, it's like, hey, we went from, hey, I think we can make these numbers work, to, I'm not sure with the deferred maintenance and all the other factors if this is something we actually want to go through. It doesn't make sense anymore. So either the seller was going to come down in price, or we were going to find another property, because it didn't work. That's one of those questions where I could chew on that for a week and we could have a really good nugget of like, hey, it's totally this or that.